Transit last week. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
We're now live, so you can go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm not quite ready yet. Let me get something up here. Okay, are we ready to start?
Yes, you are.
I'd like to call our projects committee meeting to order and ask for a roll call of our committee.
Livermore alternate Gina Bonanno,
Here.
Director Brown,
Here.
Vice Chair Josie,
Here.
Chair Halbert.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. And just note and welcome the new member from Livermore, Gina Bonanno. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I look forward
We
to
now
it.
have the meeting agenda item number 3, where we open to public comment. Members of the public who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers who have indicated wanting to speak?
So we have no attendees at this meeting, and I didn't receive any public comment via email.
Excellent. Very good. With that said, item 4 is minutes of the February 22nd meeting of the committee. I'll make a motion that we approve. Is there a second?
Brown seconds.
Very good. Can we have a roll call vote to approve the minutes?
Livermore alternate Gina Bonanno,
Abstain?
Director Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Josie,
Yes.
Chair Halbert.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. Item 5 is Executive Director's Report. I see for information. Do we have a report, Mr. Tree?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. This is definitely probably unusual to not have any action items really other than an informational item on the Executive Director's Report. So there's a lot going on. I put kind of the key highlights, I think, in the Executive Director's Report. I probably should put a few more pictures. This thing just kind of goes on and on. But thought I'd go through each one of them just rather briefly, and then we have staff here who can assist with the details if you have some questions or comments with them. Just kind of starting off with perhaps what's the most important, and that is your ridership on your fixed route system. Basically, it's trending upward, not by a bunch, but as you can see from the information in the staff report, we were at a pretty low average in April of 2020, 750 a day. And then we have slowly seen that basically double over the past year. But it pales in comparison to where we were pre-COVID with approximately, a little over 7,000 rides pre-COVID. So I think, I think that ridership will steadily increase and perhaps gain magnitude as we move forward with folks getting vaccinated. We continue to have all of the kind of the steps in place to, what's the right word I'm looking for, to clean the bus, to geez, help me out, staff, to disinfect. That's the word I'm looking for. These buses daily and also throughout the day. So I think there's a fairly decent comfort level from the public that the buses are clean, that they're disinfected. We have been hearing more and more information from the CDC that COVID is spread primarily through the air rather than through touching a surface. And so the disinfecting, we're really evaluating that disinfecting that we're doing with the buses, and perhaps even more so, we're evaluating the air within the bus and how to disinfect that air. So we have on the agenda, just as soon as I'm done, just a quick presentation of some air purifiers that we've been evaluating that bring in the air and purify the air. Other than that, you can see, I think things are going well with the school services update. We've been able to meet the demands. Tony McCauley, your director of planning, has been working really closely with the school districts. So I think things are going well there as they begin to ramp up as well. Paratransit services, that's your door-to-door service for the senior and disabled. That's taken a big hit, obviously, as you're aware, with COVID, the pandemic. But as you're aware, on April 1st, we entered into a partnership with Central Contra Costa Transit Authority, better known as County Connection. So that went well, that transition from running our own paratransit program to actually partnering with County Connection. We will, now that we've got things kicked off and things flowing smoothly, we're going to get that ad hoc committee that we had talked about together to just take a look at what we're trying to achieve, really kind of document, and even more importantly, how we'll track whether or not we're succeeding with that partnership. But it sure has added a lot of capacity into the agency in regard to providing paratransit service, and a great degree of seamlessness for the customer, as well as some nice benefits such as an app, so that customers can book their ride on an app and actually watch their ride in progress in real time within that app, which is soon to come. We have a lot of capital projects. I noted the rapid bus stop improvements on Santa Rita that we have been working on. That project's coming to a conclusion, but also to note that there's an additional $4.3 million set for bus stop improvements that will soon be, we've requested and soon would be awarded for the agency to do even additional future bus stop improvements. So I've got some information there in regard to that 4.3 million, mostly for continuing upgrades of your rapid routes, which is your premium service. It has, once we get back to pre-COVID levels, that 15-minute all-day service. Flipping the page, we have the earmarks and the reauthorization process that's ongoing. Congressman Swalwell will be introducing to the T&I committee back in Washington, which is your Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. He'll be introducing Atlantis, the operation and maintenance facility for LAFTA, into the 5-year reauthorization bill to see if he can get that into that bill in an amount of $10 million. So get you about halfway home between what we see in reserves for the project and that $10 million. When you combine those two, gets you about halfway there. It's about a $33 million project. But you know what I think is important about that, and why I think it'll get traction as Congressman Swalwell introduces that to the T&I committee and it goes from there, is that that's a project that's very important for you infrastructure-wise to get into your zero emission technology with your buses, whether that's battery electric buses or a similar technology of electric buses through hydrogen. So as you're well aware, we're undergoing our long range plan for getting into getting a zero emission fleet put together. So that's a top priority of the Biden administration and certainly a top priority of your legislature. And so I think that request will go well. There's a few other things here just to make note. The next time we meet in May, you'll receive the draft Tri-Valley Hub Network study. So that's a study that was asked of us by the state, by CalSTA. And it's a study that it identifies where is the Tri-Valley hub. And that was pretty obvious as we looked and worked through that study that it was the Dublin Pleasanton BART station. And so what the study does is it really calls out for future service that comes in and out of the hub, as well as identifying per request by the state what express bus looks like on the 680 corridor. So it was a study where we partnered, obviously really closely with County Connection and the Central Contra Transit Authority, which is the equivalent of ACTC over in our adjacent county. So more on that to come, and you can expect that that'll be an agenda item in May. You got your budget preparation that you will soon be talking about as a board. That'll go to the F&A committee soon, and then you'll see it at the board. There's a couple other things there. The shared autonomous vehicle project, I think we've talked about quite a bit. We were all, we're looking for funding basically to get that project into phase 2, which would include faster autonomous vehicles that would allow us to get into passenger service on a regular basis on a route. We had asked for some funding from the feds on that through the earmark process, and I don't think it made the cut. And so we do have a couple of other options that we're working with on that to keep that project moving. I think that's it, other than just an acknowledgement that your staff is really key with the Valley Link project. And that project is really a day and night proposition right now as we get close to taking the environmental work to the Valley Link board. At their very next meeting in May, they'll be looking at certifying the EIR for that project and adopting the project, which is a huge milestone. And there were certainly a lot of things to negotiate and conclude as we kind of came to the end of the draft process and have gotten the final version ready for the board. And then there's a lot of work going on with the FTA in regard to that rail authority and the soon to be started 30% design on the project. So that's a glimpse of just kind of everything moving behind the scenes. I felt it was important enough that maybe we had the P&S committee meeting today, even though it's really just a review of what's going on. With that, I'd be happy to, answer any questions, provide additional information. And as I mentioned, Tone, our Director of Operations and Innovation, has been working on an air purification system, really to counteract and to disinfect the air, if you will, which seems to be a growing issue for public transit. So with that, Chair, again, just recognizing that Tone has a couple of slides to show for you on that, which will be business before the board likely in May. Whenever you'd like to introduce those slides or have those slides presented, we'd be happy to do that.
Do that as part of the executive director's report. But before we do that, let's ask if there are any questions of the executive director at this time. I am going to go to Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple questions. Thank you very much for the update, Michael. And you guys are very busy. But when you look at a $4.3 million bus stop fund for some location, do you expect that to be rapid stops, which are that beautiful glass kind of look, or are these just in general bus shelters?
So this project basically is to install shelters in various locations, and they would follow the pattern of the shelters, the rapid shelters that have been installed. So there's a distinct style for Livermore, for example, as well as Dublin, and now Pleasanton has a style that we would pattern if we're to put additional shelters within Pleasanton. So The thought is the three patterns, the three styles of those rapid stops had been established, and this is money really to come in and upgrade the stops that aren't currently with those shelters or with the rapid medallion signs adjacent to the shelter. I will say a good deal of this project funding is for the signage for the rapid medallion sign that didn't go in the first time around when we did the rapid shelters.
Yeah, they're really nice, really, really eye-catching. Okay. Then the talk about air and Tone talking about air turnover and safety. We all know when we're doing outside dining, air turnover and just open air is part of the solution, at least now, for outdoor dining, even in inclement weather. Is it possible to open windows in a bus? And if this is Tone's presentation, I'll just wait, but for fresh air to circulate through the bus?
So that's a really good question. The only availability of popping something open while the bus is in motion is the vents that are on top of the bus. I think there's 2 of them on a 40-foot bus. But the windows, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, or Tone, but I do not believe that you can open those on the current fleet that we have.
That's correct.
Okay. Back in the old days when I was a kid riding the bus, you have to really muscle them to get the windows down. And those days are gone. And then lastly, within the city of Pleasanton, we of course brought Black Tie Limousine on for our intercity bus system for our seniors. And so it sounds like your ridership is down for paratransit dial-a-ride, but are you seeing any folks transfer over from Pleasanton that had not formally been on Pleasanton in your system before?
Don't you have an idea? That would come through eligibility, so would see that paperwork coming through for the first time to qualify on the LAFTA system, but
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not tracked.
Okay.
And since the transition in, I think, February 1st, the ridership has been somewhat steady. And we think that's because of Pleasanton Paratransit reducing their operating hours and days a while back. So the transition already happened prior to February 1st. So that's why we didn't see a spike when we took over in February.
Okay. All right. And just one last question here. The Aquarius, if we relocate our corporate offices over to Aquarius, and you said maybe approximately 10 million from the feds, and you have some already in reserve. What about the site you're in right now? Is that worth a chunk of money that would help offset the cost? Do you own it?
Yeah, the short answer is that you could certainly sell the property and it would be worth several $1 million. We haven't priced that out yet, but alternatively, an option for the board would be to lease the site and then take the revenues from the lease and put them into the operations of the system. So in essence, have an income property for the agency that would help fund your operating budget. And Tamara, you feel free to correct me on that. I mean, you've seen and have looked at that before, but I think there's a couple of options for the board, certainly selling or leasing.
If we sell, a large portion of it will have to go back to the FTA because this building was built with FTA funds. And anytime you sell anything for more than $5,000, the percentage that you used has to go back. So I don't know what the percentage was, but say it was even 50%, 50% of it would have to go back. Whereas if we leased it out, 100% of those funds, provided they're used for transit, but that's all we do here, could go into our operation. So it's kind of one of those things because this building's getting older, the expenses are there, but at the same time, we kind of lose the money if we sell it. So it's something we'll have to decide when the time comes.
That is really interesting. So just a follow-on question, if I may, Chair. Don't remember David went. Okay. Do you have to rent it to transit? Because now you're one level removed from utilizing FTA funds for transit.
No, as long as the money that's generated is used for transit, you're okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because that would be
Interesting.
difficult because there is no other transit.
Yeah. Well, Black Tie Limousine or somebody, but yeah. Okay, no, it's the answer. So I appreciate that. All right, so we got a gap and we need to find some funds. Is that something I know the finance group will be looking at, but could you get a bond fund or something for that difference, like the 10 or $15 million if there's a shortfall?
We could, we've talked about this at staff level on a couple of occasions and in a couple of different settings, but with the Biden administration, for example, if there was a significant increase in funding from the federal government that was ongoing year by year, you could take that and use that to pay for a debt service from a bond or what have you.
Mhm.
I'm curious too. I mean, maybe tomorrow, but it would be something great to look into. If we lease the property out, could we use those revenues from the lease to offset debt to get into Atlantis on an ongoing basis to get over there quicker and realize some of the benefits of being in the new facility?
That is an excellent question that has never come up during any of my procurement classes or during the triennial classes. But it's something I can always run by the FTA and just kind of, well, they don't always like to give a committal type answer, but I can see if I can fish around and get a possible answer to that.
Okay, and then just one last final question. If you go to Atlantis, is there any possibility of sharing Valley Link space in Atlantis? Or would it just be for wheels? Or the existing facility that you're in now, would that be a Valley Link site? I guess eventually Valley Link will grow and it will need administrative support beyond borrowing from our lab staff. Just looking at transit options for helping to facilitate the cost. If it's part of if Aquarius is Atlantis, excuse me, is part of Valley Link as a site, if that would help offset the cost that you're going to be hopefully getting funding for Valley Link. So I'm just trying to find creative ways to get you in that building sooner. So
Yeah,
yeah.
some great thoughts there. And I think the answer is yes, it could.
Right, thank you.
So just to follow on that, could we look at leasing Valley Link space?
Yeah, I think you could. We paused briefly during the EIR. The operations and maintenance center for Valley Link is actually scheduled, or it's actually being planned in Tracy, adjacent to the Mountain House station. That's where the city of Tracy provided at no cost to the Valley Link board 200 acres to put the operations and maintenance facility. And I would assume that your admin's probably going to want to be pretty close to that operations and maintenance facility. There's going to be a lot of action going on there. But that's, there's a couple of key decision points coming up with the Valley Link project where potentially that could be reconsidered. And so as soon as we get the EIR and a couple of things out of the way, I think that there's a conversation coming to the Valley Link board in regard to alignment and the location of that potential operations and maintenance facility. But it certainly could be leased to the Valley Link project, some space out of this Atlantis project.
I wonder if the executive directors could talk to one another.
Yeah.
Follow-on question to Commissioner Brown's earlier question about the bus stops. So $4.3 million, how many bus stops are we going to get? I think I saw 3, but I wasn't sure if that was the final number.
Well, you get a lot of bus stops. I can bring to the board kind of the penciled out version of how that number came to fruition. How many stops get a medallion sign that already have a rapid shelter, and how many get a rapid shelter and a medallion sign. There's quite a few. That is a huge project. But there are a couple of stops that we've kind of labeled in the staff report as key stops.
Okay, that's what I was reading. Key stops.
Yep, those will be significantly enhanced, like your stop at Las Positas College with, hundreds of students getting on and off there. We envision something a little more grand than a couple of bus shelters, more like a beautiful arbor that the students could wait under with some really nice real-time signage. So I would call those upgraded key stops.
So the 2.3 million from MTC is above and beyond the 4.3 million?
No, it's the 2 million there.
Okay, 2 plus
Sort
2.3.
of MTC's funding, yeah, that's safe and seamless strike, quick strike grant program, and then that additional 2.3 from the RM2, which is your bridge toll.
So not that I'm putting my former mayor's cap back on in any way, shape, or form.
Wear it, Dave.
But I will say, I will prompt the representative from Dublin to consider pushing hard for student bus stops that are now non-existent in terms of overhang or coverage from the rain capabilities, that we know we have bus loads of kids taking the bus, which means hundreds of students, and sometimes standing in the rain when it's raining. I know that's not every day, but it would be nice to have some covered bus stops for those paying customers. So I don't know if we can do, we talked about this at one point, Michael, years ago, and I don't know what the proper way to get that done is, but we talked about it. And I think you mentioned that there is a way to get that done. I don't know if this is it or not.
Yeah, I think these two programs in particular, MTC was looking to continue to improve your rapid routes, since they are your premium service that really is a large generator for regional rides, rides that come in and connect with other transit systems. But nonetheless, if that's a priority of the board, staff can continue to look into how we get some funding for shelters with the school routes. There's challenges obviously there. I mean, your popular stops have, 30, 40 kids getting on at a stop, and the level of canopy that you can provide in a bus shelters, unless you're spending a lot of money, is usually limited to 4 or 5 students that would have coverage out of the rain. So, I mean, there's some challenges there. But if, as the board, as you think about your priorities, especially with the budget coming up and coming before you in the next 30 to 45 days, it'd be a good topic to hear from you on.
And I think that my comments would be applicable to any bus stop that has that many people congregating at it at any one time. So, okay. I'll go back to Commissioner Brown in a minute. I just want to ask Commissioner Bonanno, anything to add, questions or comments? Councilmember Commissioner Josie. If not, I'll go straight to Mayor.
I did have one. This is Commissioner Josie. I had one quick question, if I might, on the paratransit with the on-time arrivals, which is fantastic. Was that a true apples to apples comparison? So it was pandemic level on-time arrival with our previous provider compared to on-time arrival with the new provider, and how much of the on-time arrival data do we think is due to decreased ridership because of the pandemic? Could you just address that just a little bit?
Tony, you want to address
Yeah,
that?
I can take that. So the comparison that we made was comparing the first couple of weeks under the new contractor versus MTN's performance during the COVID period. So it is
okay, great.
Apple.
Wonderful.
Commissioner Brown.
Oh, I think Gina, no, okay.
Thanks for asking.
Oh, Gina, anything?
No,
Go ahead.
I'm in listening and learning mode this evening, so I will never be shy about questions, but I don't have any right now. Thank you, Bill.
So we've been doing this so many years. So looking back, and I love the new bus shelters on Santa Rita. The rapid shelters are gorgeous and such a dramatic improvement. But I did have one question. I noticed there's, and this is little, but I noticed there's 2 large garbage cans by each one. And for the life of me, I can't tell you why we would need 2 garbage cans by a bus shelter. And I'm asking the question sort of as a reduce of cost. Was that a requirement by the city in some way, or why is there 2 large garbage cans by each bus shelter?
So I think the quick answer is that we haven't put decals on the shelters. There's some decals, and one of those is regular trash and one is a recyclable trash.
Okay.
So it'll have some recycling stickers on it here in the near future. So our contractor, I think, in general, we're trying to get them to make sure that if we can, that we separate the trash from the recyclables.
Oh,
And that makes it a little easier.
sense. Okay, that makes sense. I'll look forward to the stickers. All right, thank you. That's it
You
for
bet.
me.
That was really appropriate back when we would process recycling materials, but that hasn't happened for quite some time. We hope to get back to that point. Anyway, that's another commission that I sit on that I have to worry about. So called Stop Waste. Anyway, with that said, let's see if we want to go to Tone and see this new cutting edge clean air, other than opening the windows process.
Okay. So let me pull it up.
We used to open the windows, then we thought, well, now we're so sophisticated, we have air conditioning, and now we have COVID, so we want to open the windows again, but we can't. So that's where Tone comes in.
Can you see the presentation?
Yep.
So before I dive into the technology or the system, I just want to go over some of the initiative we have implemented to date in effort to provide a safe.
5 minutes, Tone, just so you know.
Okay, it'll be less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So as Michael mentioned earlier, the buses are fogged daily, and all the high touch areas are being wiped down daily at the layover point. In addition, at the Trans Center, the passenger amenities are being disinfected twice a day. And in terms of improvement on board our buses, we recently completed the installation of the drive barrier door to provide a safe way for passengers to board and deboard our buses. We also have hand sanitizers installed inside the vehicle, as well as the Trans Center and at the 2 BART stations. And we are using the highest grade possible for our HVAC system. And then if weather permits, we are opening the latch to allow airs to circulate better. And lastly, I believe about 6 months ago, we were able to work with the Transit app to provide customer with load information and arrival time information in real time. So those are some of the key initiatives. And as Michael mentioned earlier, CDC recently came out and say that the risk of transmitting the virus through surface is very low, is mainly through the air. So given this latest report, staff has identified the need to install technology that will inactivate the virus in the air of our buses. So I have a short video about the product that I want to show.
Public transportation moves millions and millions of people every day. When COVID hit, transportation in cities became the lifeline, getting people to and from essential jobs. Public transit is essential, and we needed a product that would alleviate some of the impacts of COVID on our ridership and allow people to return to public transportation. United Safety's Active Air Sanitation System with UV-PHI technology by RGF is beneficial for sanitation of air in any moving vehicle. These units pass untreated air over the active air purification system, and out the other side, the water vapor molecules pass over the catalyst. They are ionized and create hydrogen peroxide molecules from the water vapor naturally occurring in the air. Once the hydrogen peroxide molecules are created, the HVAC blowers will transport those molecules to the entirety of the bus or train, whether it's school bus, a public transit vehicle, a first responder vehicle. We have the ability not only to enhance the safety of the passenger and the operator, but also dramatically increase the safety on the interior of that vehicle. As things reopen, as children go back to school, as our public begins to re-enter public transportation, we are providing them the safest environment to return to. It allows people to enter back into their normal daily lives in a safer place. And that's what we're passionate about.
What's the name of the company that produces that? United Safety?
United Safety Survivability Corporation, or USSC.
Wow. Seems pretty cool.
So we currently use them to purchase seat replacements or material for our seats. So they are an existing vendor that we're using. So a little bit more about the product. Again, the product is safe because it is using natural occurring hydrogen peroxide to kill the virus. And it shows that it can kill up to 99% of the germs, viruses and bacteria, including SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. And it doesn't cause any damage to the interior of the surfaces.
Great.
So although this technology is new to transit, it's been around for a long time, especially in hospitals and on airplanes. Here's just a sample of the agencies that are currently testing or demoing the product, and also a list of agencies that already have the system installed in their buses. So over 4 units are currently in service globally. So it's not new technology, it's new to transit. So this item is informational today, but we're going to put together a staff report and take it to the full board on May 3rd. If the board approves, then we'll begin installation and have it completed by the end of this fiscal year. I think that's less than 5 minutes.
Close enough, Tone. Great job. Any questions?
I have one.
Go for it.
Just, it's what you're doing right now is using just a filtration system. I don't know if it's HEPA or something else. This disinfection is a very different technology, obviously, but in the interim, do we have any knowledge that the filtration systems is actually capturing any of the aerosolized virus? I mean, the filtration systems, I just don't know what the effectiveness of the sort of physical filtration systems as opposed to a real disinfection, which kills the virus. This is filtration intended to capture. So you mentioned filtration. I just wondered, do we know about how effective the existing systems are that have been implemented?
So the one we have in place right now is where we use a fogging machine that disperses hydrogen peroxide and kind of fumigate the bus. So to start out the day, the bus is clean, but if one of our passengers has COVID and touches surface, then everything goes out the window. Well, with this, is continually pushing out the hydrogen peroxide to clean the air and the surfaces.
Right. No, I understand that. It's just that you mentioned earlier that the existing technology is just a filtration system of some kind. You disinfect every day, but as you say, that's just a one-time thing in the morning. And what happens, since you said it goes out the window, except we don't open the window, so nothing goes out the window. But what I guess I'm saying is the filtration system that you mentioned earlier in your presentation, the first slide, is that intended to address in any way the COVID virus? Does that make sense?
It does. So I think you're referring to the MERV 7 filter that we use for our HVAC system. Michael probably know better than I do, but I think it just cleans the air, but I don't think it actually kills the virus.
Does it even capture it, I guess is my question. It doesn't kill it, but does it capture it?
You know, Tone, we had those statistics early on when we moved to the MERV 7 air filter. I think it's a great question. Let's circle back and have a good answer at the board meeting. It hadn't dawned on me to go back and look at those statistics.
Great, thanks.
Very good. And it's certainly a curious question. Either way, we are using the most sophisticated filter that the manufacturer will allow us to use. So we're always doing the best we can, but we need to know indeed how we're doing. And this disinfector, which integrates well with our system, seems to be pretty efficient way to do that. I'm intrigued. I hope that they are successful. The question I would have is what other buses have they installed on, like another transit agency? I'm all for being the first bleeding edge pioneer, but I'm also very cognizant of just stealing good ideas that work well for others. So are we a leader on this bleeding edge, or are we a fast follower? Where are we in that space?
We're in the forefront, but we're not first. So Turlock in Stanislaus County has it. Humboldt Transit up Northern California has it. And San Diego MTS and LA Metro is currently testing it. But it's being installed throughout the United States as we speak.
Okay. All right. Well, kudos to Turlock. Hey, that's great. We can be a fast follower. I love it. That sounds interesting. What's the price point of these things?
It's about $3,000 with installation per unit.
Huh. What's the cost of a bus? I'm kidding. That's fine. We should talk to Gillig about getting these on their buses. What does Gillig think about this?
They do have a partnership with Gillig, and this will be offered as an OEM as an option going forward.
Wow. All right. Makes sense. Hey, what about Bay Area Air Quality? Another committee that I sit on besides Stopways. What about Bay Area Air Quality Management, Michael? Can we get them to pay for this?
You know, it's a good question to ask. So yeah, we should ask. Our vision was to get this in as part of our pandemic, recovery plan. So to try and get some FEMA money for these and some other federal funding that has perhaps come through CARES Act distributions. So I think there's a couple of ways to skin the cat on this one, but I'll check in with the Bay Area AQMD to see what potential there might be for this.
All right.
I think they're usually really uber focused on emissions, right? And reducing emissions, which this is a little different animal, but it's worth asking.
Yeah. All right. You're good point. Good point. Stick these on the top of a smokestack and see if it works. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, they are really focused on emissions. You're right. Okay. Well, listen, with that said, we've, I think, completed that item, which is the executive director's report. Item 6, preview of upcoming P&S committee agenda items.
Tomorrow, you want to take this one or you want me to?
All you. This isn't my committee.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, you know, in the staff report, you can see a couple of things coming up, and certainly service changes are probably high priority, as well as just continuing to follow these projects. As mentioned, your Tri-Valley Hub study will be coming up in May, which is a big action item. A return of your public transportation agency safety plan. We'll be coming back to the board an update since you have now entered into a partnership with County Connection. That document needed to be updated. And also we've got some customer satisfaction surveys and so on that we'll be embarking on that'll come to this committee a little bit later in the summer.
All right. Good. Any questions about upcoming items? If not, we'll move on to matters initiated by committee members. Anything to initiate, Mayor Brown?
None.
No way, that's a first. No, I'm kidding.
I'll think really hard and come up with it later.
With that said, our next meeting date is scheduled for May 24th. That's not Memorial Day weekend, is it? Anybody?
No, the next one is 20,
No.
Memorial Day is on a Monday and it's
It's the 31st is Memorial Day.
Okay, so it's the 31st this year. Great. Just wanted to double check. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.